WXBR, you were listening to PM in the AM. Peter Czymbor here with you on this Friday morning. This Wednesday at the TD Garden in Boston, playing with Avenged Sevenfold, is the Deftones. And joining me now to discuss is the DJ and keyboard player for the Deftones, Mr. Frank Delgado. Frank, good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. Frank, the Deftones are a band that has really run the gamut of all of the different venues here in the Boston and New England area, both big, small, and absolutely gargantuan. I remember you guys playing on the Metallica tour at Gillette Stadium, home of the Patriots. Now you're playing the home of the Bruins and the Celtics of the TD Garden. And you guys have hit up the small dive bars like the Middle East and whatnot. You guys really don't mind playing at venues both large and absolutely huge, it seems.
No, not at all. I mean, it makes it fun. You know what I mean? And thankfully, we have those opportunities to play those really big places. You know what I mean? Whether it's supporting someone like Metallica or coming out with System or Avenged. But, I mean, that's how we cut our teeth, was playing little clubs, too. You know what I mean? So we actually like going back to that, too. You know what I mean? It makes for more of an intimate show. But I think we're very lucky to be able to run the gamut of those sizes venues, you know?
So you guys are a band that will go from playing a 60,000-seat stadium and then not mind a few months later doing your own tour and selling out a 500-seat venue just to kind of get that intimate experience with your real hardcore fans that want to see you up front.
We've done it before. You know, we've done like the little guerrilla runs where it's specifically meant just for the clubs. You know what I mean? And it makes for a good, fun time, honestly. You know. What
do you like better, the big shows or the small shows? What are the pros and cons of each?
Oh, man, you know what? I mean, the cons are of a bigger show. The sound usually in a big arena is not the best as far as traveling all the way back. But and it's a bigger stage, which is a pro, you know what I mean, which is fun. But, you know, also in the littler shows, you know, it's very intimate, nice and sweaty, and it usually leads to a really diverse set, you know what I mean? But we're just thankful to be able to do both, you know what I mean? I enjoy both, honestly.
The arena, sometimes you get the rules in places like Boston where you have to have the chairs on the floor and things like that. Does that ever bother you as a band?
No, not at all. Not really. But, I mean, at the same time, you can be in the European festivals, and, you know, those are 40,000, 50,000 people in the open area, and amazing, you know what I mean? So it's just a matter of timing and energy and, you know, giving energy and hopefully receiving it back, and it usually leads to that kinetic time. But, you know, it's just, it's a really good thing to be doing, especially with your buddies, your best friends, you know what I mean? So
one thing I love about those European festivals is that you really get a wide range of bands of a different styles on one show. Here in America, you guys will play with Avenged Sevenfold as you are Wednesday night at the Garden, Metallica, Korn, bands that are all heavy bands within your genre. Europe, it seems like you could have you guys and Bob Seger on the same show, and for some reason it makes sense. What's the most unique bill you've ever been on out of the country?
Oh, my God. There's been so many, and they usually, every year, it's the same, different festivals, different, you know, genres, lineups. I think, man, you know, it's really hard to explain. It's what they've been doing for over, you know, 40 years, some of these festivals, you know what I mean? Some of them are 20 years old, some are 30, 40 years old, and you get to these things, and it is amazing how the lineup is just so diverse, and the people go there, and they'll camp for the weekend, you know what I mean? And I often think to myself, like, what an amazing thing to have, you know, like, imagine growing up in that type of environment where you can go to these festivals as a child, and that's what people do, you know what I mean? And it's wide open, and it's such a refreshing idea and stuff. There's festivals that have tried, the Coachella have tried, and things like that, you know what I mean? But they'll never be able to touch those European festivals, which is just amazing. You know?
The last American festival I can think of where it was just a wide range of bands from all different genres in one show was Woodstock, and that did not end particularly well in '99.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
We're chatting with Frank Delgado of the Deftones here on WXBR. You are listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM. They're playing this Wednesday night with Avenged Sevenfold in Boston. You guys haven't released an album since 2012, but it was late 2012. You guys still consider this a tour in support of your most recent album, Koi No Yakan?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it came out at the very end of 2012, and then we went home for the holidays. But yeah, I mean, we're totally in support of this record right now, and this is going to take us up into the holidays again. and then hopefully we'll be right back out in the new year.
Do you think bands are touring so long in support of albums these days as they used to? It seemed like bands would tour about 2 years on an album back 10, 15,
average.
20 years ago, where it seems nowadays they might do one run or two in the United States, and that's about it. Then they're going overseas.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to fit everything in within an album cycle, you know what I mean? But especially nowadays where people feel they need to put out a record, as fast as possible, and which is easily doable nowadays. But we just got back from Europe and South Africa, and before that we were in Pan-Asia stuff, and we as a band want to be everywhere, especially places we haven't been yet, and it just takes time, And over the years, we've learned to take longer breaks, too, so it's not like we're grinding it out for, 4 months on the road and then home for a week and then another 4 on the road. So we've learned to, go out for 2 months, come home for, 3 weeks, go out for a month, come home for 3 weeks, So it's I think we still grind it out as far as, I think our last record was, we toured for a good almost 2 years, you know what I mean, before we went right back into the studio. So there is no break, per se. We're constantly doing this, but I think as bands nowadays, that's how you make your living. If you're not selling millions and millions of records, and no one really is, you tour. You know what I mean? You sell tickets and T-shirts, and that's how it works.
Now, you mentioned that a lot of bands like to put out new music rather quickly, and it's easy to do nowadays. Obviously, you're referring to the fact that people really don't go out to record stores, buy albums anymore. People are downloading a lot of single songs and things of that nature on iTunes. Do you like the way the music industry is going with it being digital downloads and single songs, or do you miss the days of putting out a single on the radio and then a few months later, buying the entire album as a whole at the record store as a physical copy in your hand?
I do miss buying that tactile piece of art, you know what I mean? But there's something to be said for the way technology has changed everything, you know what I mean? Whether it's the way the label is dealing with the artist, the way record sales are selling. But I find it amazing that a kid can create something in his bedroom and put it online and literally create a fan in Japan, just by a push of a button on his computer. I mean, that blows my mind. You couldn't do that. What I do miss of the old days is maybe a little more artist development where a label actually signs a band because they see something intriguing and hear something and let them develop. And, back in the days, artists were let to develop over the years, over albums. And nowadays it's all single driven. And if you don't have a single, usually that band disappears. You're lucky if you get 2 or 3 records out of them. So that's kind of a sad thing, you know what I mean? But there's still bands out there who are doing it on their own, and there's always going to be someone younger and fresher creating new sounds. And it's just a matter of the type of person you are who are into music and you're willing to search it out and find it, you know what I mean? And that, for sometimes people are music is nothing more than what they listen to on the way to work on their car, and then there's other kids who support and go out and see shows and want to see live music, and you know what I mean? So it all depends on what type of person you are.
Once again, we're chatting with Frank Delgado of the Deftones here on WXBR, DJ and keyboard player for the Deftones. You guys are a band that have been around for, I want to say, 15 years at this point? Is that about right?
Yeah, a little bit longer. The band actually started here in Sacramento in 1988, and I was the new guy in the late 90s. But, they've been around since, most of these guys have known each other since they were 12.
So the band's been around since the late 80s, but maybe prominent on a national level for about 15 years. Is that fair to say?
Yes, definitely.
About 10, 15 years ago, it was the norm for rock bands to have a DJ and a keyboard player in their band. Right. There was you guys, Incubus, Limp Bizkit, even early Sugar Ray when they were a hard rock band. They all had DJs scratching records in their group. Really not something you see anymore. Do a lot of kids come up to you guys at shows when they're seeing bands like Avenged Sevenfold, who you guys will be sharing the stage with this Wednesday night, and sort of ask, what's the deal with the rock band having a DJ? Do they understand the concept of it?
Well, it was a weird time then. You know what I mean? I think I always tried to approach it a little differently back then, and I never wanted to be the scratching guy that, or the urban DJ guy in the rock band. And what was really cool about that was it made me rethink things and how to incorporate sounds into the band that I was really into. But and that's how I ended up going into keyboards, because basically I didn't own instruments or know how to play an instrument, but I had a lot of records, and everyone liked that about me. And then it led me into creating my own sounds, and whether it was using keyboard software now and stuff like that. So, but I think that was just the timing as far as the culture and what we grew up on as, my generation. I listened to everything from Michael Jackson to Metallica, you know what I mean? And it runs the gamut, and all I ever did was work in a record store. So, and then hip-hop music was such a big thing in the late 80s, and it became such the norm. And I mean, now it is popular music. Now it's pop music, rap music, and so that total influx, it just seemed normal to us, you know what I mean? I think, but for me, I always tried to approach it differently, and I think I could always hear something different about this band when I met them and joined them, and so that led me into the world I'm in now, creating soundscapes and melodies and stuff by using instruments. But the only reason why, I was invited into this band is because of what I was doing with those records, because that's all I had. I didn't have money. I didn't know how to play an instrument. And not to say that that's the same for all those other bands, but sure, there was a time where I think it was just kind of like, we're going to get a DJ and put it in this band, you know what I mean? But I think that's why my band has persevered, whatever, because it was never about that. It was never about trying to emulate or be whatever it was at the time. We were just trying to make cool sounds, you know what I mean? And that's the journey we're still on. It's trying to make cool sounds and cool records and cool albums as a whole, you know what I mean? So
not only has your band persevered, but Frank, you've persevered yourself through this band. I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of bands from that mid to late 90s era, early 2000s who had DJs in the group that are out touring now almost as a nostalgia trick, and the DJs aren't even in the group because they really weren't even a significant part of the band to begin with. They were just there.
Sure. Yeah, totally. I think, for us, not growing up in like LA or something, we're from Sacramento, and we weren't chasing a scene. We weren't chasing a look. We were just doing what we do and trying to make, really good songs at the time. And it was all a learning process for us. We were all learning. We were all self-taught. So album to album, we've learned how to write better, play better, be better friends, be better men, musicians. So it's always a learning process. But we've never, as selfish as it sounds, we've always made music for ourselves. It just so happens the people who are into us are down with that, you know what I mean? And that's worked for us, and trusting our instincts. So we've always felt really cool. As when that stuff was popular and there was this big wave, there was people behind us, like as far as label and stuff, that wanted us to follow that wave. And we went left when everyone else was going right, you know what I mean? And it was our best move ever. And that's when we created records like White Pony. It was total antithesis to what was happening at the time, you know what I mean? And most people think we were shooting ourselves in the foot by doing that. But we were creating our own path, you know what I mean? And I think that's what's sustained us.
And that was sort of a weird time. The White Pony album you just mentioned, for example, I remember suddenly that getting a lot of MTV play. And during the day when the flagship show on MTV was TRL with Britney Spears and NSYNC and stuff, you guys were right there on that same show with them at times. It was just bizarre that a band as heavy as you guys, with sometimes dark experimental albums, could get as popular as some of these pop groups getting played on Top 40 radio.
Yeah, it was weird. It was a very weird time. I mean, I think that was just MTV trying to hold on to what edge they think they still had as far as playing, music. But there was nothing else really playing rock music on their show. Maybe they had Headbangers Ball, and that was about it, And that record did take off for us. And yeah, it was just a weird time how they tried to balance it. MTV was a weird thing in general. But
as a band, is it even important?
Back to that, I think how funny that is. What's up?
As a band, is it even important for you guys to have a music video that gets played on television now, or is music video simply a YouTube thing?
Yeah, it kind of is in a sense. You know what I mean? I think you want to have really cool visuals to your song, and it's usually more or less for the internet now. You know what I mean? Because there really isn't. I mean, there's other stations and stuff around the world, and in Canada, Fuse and things like that. They'll still play some videos, but it's more or less you creating your package of how you're putting out your record, and if you want it to, have some visuals, you're going to create some videos. And what's cool is because you don't have to spend millions of dollars anymore to create this video that you hope someone plays as a marketing tool. You know what I mean? So it's led to interesting videos. You know what I mean?
Having been where the Deftones have been and being where you are now, what advice would you have for people that are starting bands now and bands that are on the rise right now at this moment, given the way the music industry is now with technology and touring and things of that nature?
Yeah, honestly, just play. You know, if you're with a group of people that you all click and you're on the same wavelength, I guess you could say, you just play. That's the only way you're going to learn each other and figure out if you actually do get along, you know, and cope with situations that come up. And then the more you play, the more you get better at your craft, you know, and you create your sound. You know what I mean? I mean, you're always going to be copying something that is influencing you, but it's when you get to that point where you're making it your own, you're taking those influences instead of just kind of completely ripping them off, I guess you could say. Everyone does that, you know what I mean? But the more you play, the better you get, man, and you create something. And if you're really good, people will gravitate towards that, you know, and when kids are coming to see you, it's a good feeling, and you just strive to do better. And once you're doing that, next thing you know, you're in a van going to your next city next over, and it kind of just snowballs. But I mean, that all comes from playing. The more you play, the better you get, you know, and you find your niche.
Well, you guys will be playing with Avenged Sevenfold Wednesday night at the TD Garden in Boston. What's it like playing with bands like Avenged Sevenfold now that are bands that came after you and were probably influenced to some degree by your sound when they were coming up themselves?
Yeah, it's all good. We love playing with anyone and everyone. That's the one thing about our band is, you know, our records are really dynamic. They go from, you know, A to Z. And the same with playing with bands, you know. During our career, we've played with anyone and everyone. We've always been the type of band that's not afraid. And it's led for us to be able to do, like, a punk rock tour, like a Warped Tour, and then go do, like, you know, some indie tour, and then play Smoke Out with Cypress Hill. And, like, not too many bands that can run the gamut like that. And we're really proud of being able to do that, you know what I mean? So for us, we look at it as, like, you know, Avenge have their fans, and we have our fans, and it seems like a really good time to bring it together and let's have fun together. You know what I mean? That's basically the gist of it. So we're looking forward to it, honestly.
You guys run the gamut of playing with different bands of different musical styles and run the gamut of playing venues of all sizes in the area. Frank Delgado of the Deftones joining us here on WXBR. Frank, before I let you go this morning, any final words for our listeners?
Yeah, just looking forward to being back in the Boston area. It's always shown us great support, so we're looking forward to it.
That is Frank Delgado of the Deftones joining us here on WXBR. They're playing with Avenged Sevenfold Wednesday night at the TD Garden. We're going to step aside for a quick break. Back with more of the program in just a moment.